Hotep Senuhena Senut ET Ren Ishakan Gukemet. I hope you're doing well. We already have Love Me Fro. Hope you're doing well, sister. Can you please confirm that you can hear me loud and clear? I can see that the connection is not so great because there's the connection bar, the level, and it's quite low. I hope that it's not breaking up. Please let me know. Yes, I hear you, but it's low. Okay. I'm going to try to speak a bit louder then. Thank you for answering. Well, it's evening time for me. It's going to be 7 p.m. in 10 minutes. Are you on the West Coast? Because in New York, it is supposed to be 12:50. It's going to be 1 p.m. in 10 minutes in New York. Okay, yeah. Okay. So as I understand, California is 3 hours behind. All right. I hope I will have more people from the West Coast. 9:50 a.m. All right. Okay. So the title of this video is Dr. Mario Beatty buried the riparian claim. Bypassing Coptic is not a historical comparative method. The video I will share, as you can see in the chat, is entitled Dr. Mario Beatty ASCAC 2019 Conference, Why Kemet Obenga Speaks. There's a question mark. And you have the link. So let's listen up.
Right, Hotep, everyone. Okay, can the first slide come up? Title of my presentation is, we've spent a lot about what Kemet is. Title of my presentation is why reconceptualizing national identity. Next slide. I'm going to dedicate this presentation to Sheikh Anta Diop. And next slide. And in the 1974 UNESCO Symposium, Sheikh Anta Diop actually gives credit to deciphering what the word Kemet means. He actually gives credit to another African. This other African, he says, is Susu Nsugan, who was to compile this part of the present chapter. So I give credit to this brother too for this particular piece. Next slide. At the UNESCO conference, just a brief review. At the UNESCO conference, when you read the proceedings of the unabridged volume of the General History of Africa, Volume 2, there is a debate, many debates, but there is a debate around the word Kemet. But the main protagonist was a brother from the Sudan, Abdelgadir Abdallah. And Abdallah, I kind of feel like we're recreating the 1974 UNESCO conference. Because Abdallah said at that conference that the word Kim didn't mean black. And that was what started the whole tete-a-tete at the UNESCO symposium on the issue of Kemet. And so immediately after he said that, a French Egyptologist, Serge Sonoron, intervened. And Serge Sonoron intervened and said, no. Kim does mean black. And so Serge Sonoron and Jean Leclerc, their debates with Sheikh Anta Diop were over issues of race and culture, but not an issue of whether or not the word Kim meant black. Next slide. By way of conclusion, so if I don't complete my time, I'm going to give you my conclusions up front. Okay? By way of conclusion, the word Kemet refers to a novel ethno-geopolitical national marker of identity that was primarily forged in the cauldron of the internal contradictions and politics of what is referred as the first intermediate period. Novel in two fundamental ways. One, the innovation of a unitary concept of a nation, and two, the political need to more rigidly distinguish themselves as a nation of people, which is clearly shown in a new hyper-discourse around borders, Tosh, internally and externally, initially and principally directed against the people from Western Asia in the first intermediate period. Next slide. So, how do we know? So, Asar, gave some examples of my work, and I'm going to give some examples of your work. How do we know that Asar Imhotep means Osiris who comes in peace? How is it that we know that? We know that through a process of historical evolution within the Kemetic language, where Asar is Usire in Coptic. E, which is to come, continues all the way to Coptic. Hotep is a word that continues from the beginning all the way to Coptic. Asar's method, unfortunately, is not a historical comparative method, it's an ahistorical comparative method. It's ahistorical in the sense that what Asar does is that he wants to bypass the historical evolution of the Egyptian language that ends in Coptic. And so because he does not feel that Coptic is a part of the Egyptian language, he feels that it's a separate language. So what Asar does in his comparative method is that he goes into other areas and he doesn't go through Coptic, he goes around it. And that's where Obinga's method is the correct method. And the correct method is actually a free translation. Tep Heseb means atop the county. How do we know that? Through Coptic. So, as a result, every time you bypass Coptic, you are implicitly saying that Medu Neter has not been deciphered in your method. Because when you make translations of any text, ask yourself, how is it that we get Khenu means residence? How do we get to that? Are we guessing? Or is there a long historical evolution that ends in Coptic? And so this is what's at stake. So I'm giving this example up here from Jaroslav Cherny's Coptic Etymological Dictionary. This is the English version. I'll come to Ogden Golay's article in a minute, but Ogden, in his piece, he gives the French version of Werner Vichychel, Dictionnaire étymologique de la langue copte. But in both languages, when you see, I don't have my clicker up here, but when you see Kimon become black, Kame, black, and you see it in Demotic there, and then it has Keme, black land, Egypt. That means, and then of course, in the Veritabu that you like to cite, the earliest reference to Kim that the Veritabu gives is from the Second Dynasty, where the determinative on Kim is the horse, falcon on the standards. And how does he translate it? The black horse in the Veritabu. So from the earliest attestation, from the Second Dynasty onward, we actually see Kim meaning black. So you ask, the question is, how do we get to this? That is, that Kim as a root has a long evolution inside the Kemetic language. Next. Brother Reggie gave a text from the pyramid text. And this text is actually from the text of the pyramid of Pepi I. And the line is here, his transcription is in the second line there. Aha ek kinti kimetiu hapi, and then east. Next line. This is James Allen's translation of this. You shall stand at the four of the dual flagpole shrines as men. You shall stand at the four of those of black land as the apis. That is, that Allen is translating, because Allen is translating that as a Nesby adjective, and it's proper. That's what you see there. But it's an interesting parallel here in terms of what you see, because as Reggie said, there's a couple of points that Reggie's making very strong here. But as Reggie said, the Apis bull is not just a sacred bull, but it's a black bull. Yep. So when you see here, those of the black land as Apis, it's actually an emphasis on the fact that it's black. But the interesting thing is that with Pepi the First, we're in the 6th dynasty, and this is kind of what I want to talk about today, is that we're in the 6th dynasty. The reference by Ogden Golay, which I'm coming to in a minute, in terms of the historical reference, this implies, Kemetiu implies a Kemet. But the problem is that we only see it in the pyramid text. But it implies an Old Kingdom origin point that's local, social, descriptive. Next slide. But the issue is that when we look at a text by Nigel Strudwick, text from the Pyramid Age, Nigel Strudwick, this is the most comprehensive compilation of texts in the English language that you can read of the Old Kingdom. And I've looked at every one of these texts. And when you look at all of these texts, what you see is that Kemet is not a word that is used in the Old Kingdom to describe their land. And it's quite interesting. So that there is something that is going on. We can't fully see what is going on in the Second Dynasty all the way up until the beginning of the Middle Kingdom. But there is something there. Next slide. Some of our conversation is actually, some of what I've seen is actually an engagement with the work of Ogden Gourlay here, and an article that he wrote, Kemet and Other Egyptian Terms for Their Land. And Ogden was a professor at New York University. I actually worked with him when I was scholar in residence here at NYU. And I actually have all of his files that were thrown away in the trash by NYU. That's another story. But Ogden, in this, next slide. Well, before I come back to Ogden, I'm going to give this presentation as a shout out to my master teacher, Theophilo Bingham. And, you know, Dr. Carruthers has always taught me, many have taught me, to let the ancestors speak for themselves and let the elders speak for themselves. And so I'm not going to, in terms of what Kemet is, I'm going to read Obinga and my translation of Obinga in French and from French. And this is a work, a relatively recent work that Obinga has published. And this is part of a debate. It's a book called Leçons de la lutte contre l'africanisme eurocentriste, the meaning of the struggle against Eurocentric Africanism. And this is an excerpts from this book in a debate that he held or in print with Marc Etienne, who is the curator of the Egyptian collection at the Louvre Museum. So I'm just going to read you what he wrote in response to Marc Etienne in this debate, which actually resolves some of the issues that we're talking about. Next slide. And he's quoting Marc Etienne here. As a result, the ancient Egyptians were Black African like all other natives of the African continent. Of course, there are Blacks not only in Africa, but in South India and Melanesia, for example. Marc Etienne has not yet mastered the Egyptian language, written in hieroglyphs. And now he's quoting Etienne. The name of Egypt, Kemet, is often translated erroneously by Sheikh Anta Diop as the country of the Blacks, with grammatical errors added by T. Obinga Passing. Next slide. This translation is based on the distinction, this is still Etienne. This translation is based on the distinction made by the Egyptian text between one part called the Black Land, Ta Kim, and it's using Ta as a definite article, Ta Kim, that is to say the cultivated valley in reference to the color of the Nile soil. And the other part, the red land, that is to say the desert. The word Kim means to be complete in the sense of completed, achieved, which refers to the well-attested concept of the unity of Egypt, materialized by the union of the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, but also the unity of the country as a divine eye with perfect integrity. He's quoting Marc Etienne here. Next. And now here's Obinga's voice. Marc Etienne wanders. And it is a serious error for a quote-unquote curator of Egyptian antiquities at the Louvre Museum in Paris. What he writes does not make any sense. Sheikh Anta Diop translated Kemet by the land of the Blacks in which work, which page? I have advanced this translation with grammatical errors in which work, which page? Why lie constantly, you Eurocentric Africanists? Next slide. Now he's giving his demonstration. If Ta Kim means Black land, and if you consider Kim to be complete, completed, achieved in the translation of this expression, Ta Kim, what is then the final translation? Something like this, complete Black land completed. That is, here the word Kim has a double meaning, Black and to be complete at the same time. Marc Etienne is totally wrong. He ignores the existence of synonyms and homonyms in Egyptian. He confuses everything with incredible frivolity. Next slide. Here are the facts ignored by Marc Etienne. Kim noir, adjective. The hieroglyph of the owl is employed as a phonetic complement. Kim, to complete, to be complete, you see the determinative of the papyrus rolled up, tied, and sealed at the end there, conveying abstract notion. Thus, there exist two words, Kim, which are homonyms, but not synonyms. Adjective black and the verb to be complete. Next slide. They are different at both the lexical and grammatical level for all Egyptologists of the world, with the exception of the erudite curator of the Louvre, Marc Etienne. Next slide. What is the authentic Egyptian text that has or presents Ta-Kim, black land, to designate Egypt? There is no text. That's what Obing is saying. Like, why are you even, coming at me? This designation is a pure invention of our Egyptological scholar who should avoid the scientific lie. Marc Etienne is a dishonest man in regards to scientific research. The well-attested concept of the unity of Egypt, materialized by the union of the two lands, Upper and Lower Egypt, is not Kim to be complete, but it is Sema to unite and also Ches to unite. Everyone knows it. Next slide. The Sema-Tawi right unification of the two lands is known by the beginner studying Egyptology. Marc Etienne can now learn it. Next slide. In addition, the Egyptian lexicon gives the following. Kemet, le pays noir, the black country in English. Kemet, les gens de pays noir, les hommes et les femmes du pays noir, les habitants du pays noir. That is the Egyptians of pharaonic times. That is the men and women of the black country, the people of the black country, the inhabitants of the black country. The inhabitants of black Africa are black Africans. The inhabitants of the black country are blacks. It is the same reasoning. The Melanesians are precisely black islanders. Melas, black, and Nessos, Dorian, Nasos, island in Greek. Next slide. In his work, Ogden Golay makes a distinction between two concepts. One concept is Jeru, limits, and the other concept is Tashu, borders. And Jeru is a concept of limits that is primarily in the spiritual sphere. It deals with time and space on a broad level. But when the Kemites employ Tash, they employ that in a more geopolitical sense. And what is missed by Ogden Golay in his article is that he doesn't present the historical context of the origin of those concepts. Next slide. And that is that what Ogden doesn't do in that article is that he doesn't give a precise origin to the discourse around Tash, borders. This is a very important point in this discussion. There is a hypersensitivity of the concept of Tashu, borders, in Egyptian text that begins in the first intermediate period, which is not captured or even historically contextualized properly in Golay's narrative frame. And I just give one example here, and I give a text where you can read many examples for yourself. In Jose Galan, Victory and Border. Approach me, Kheti. I shall make a storm over the province. My rule is Neket, after I have made my Tash as far as Wadi Khesi. Stella of the overseer of Jari, recording Intep's words addressed to Kheti. So the point is here is that there is, when the ancient Egyptians are in this context spending well over 100 years of fighting each other, there is now a fractured national consciousness. And that fractured national consciousness internally is playing out with this hypersensitivity of borders. Against themselves, initially, this goes into my discourse on Hassi also, that you talk about. Everything is linked. Next slide. So, as Asar has rightly said, in a presentation is that in the Old Kingdom, primarily when we look at administrative text, what we can see is we see Tawi, the two lands, we see Idemwi, two riverbanks, the two riparian lands with the irrigated canals, and then we see Anu, the residents. Next slide. But somewhere, and this is from Ogden. Ogden says, somewhere around the period when Egypt was once more reunified under the rule of Dynasty 11 monarch Pet-Ra Mentuhotep II, the terms Kemet, the Black Land, and Ta-Meri, the Beloved Land, first made their appearance. And so what Ogden does in his article is, next slide. What Ogden does in his article is that he distinguishes between what he calls non-literary texts and literary texts, and to try to make this point. And every time that Ogden, this is an inference being made by Egyptologists, that is that when they see Kemet translated in contrast to Deshret, when they see that, they are translating Black Land. And it has a connotation for them of quote unquote soil, the soil. When they're not seeing that, then they're translating it as Egypt. That is, as something much broader than this. And so Asar makes a point in a presentation that I saw that when you see the determinatives of an irrigated canal on the back of Kemet as opposed to the town or settlement, what Asar said in one of his presentations was that those two determinatives are interchangeable. No, they're not. Those two determinatives are in different semantic universes. So if you see an irrigated canal on the back of Kemet, then yes, it is appropriate. It's quite appropriate to translate that as the Black Land. The Black irrigated land, actually. But if you don't see that, you can't make that translation. When you see the town determinative on Kemet, you cannot make that translation. And it is not inferred or implied. Next slide. So I have some work to do myself because I did a little bit of work at Johns Hopkins. And I said, because all of these texts that Ogden gave were very localized in a particular region called the Wadi Hamamat. And everyone knows is that these inscriptions are interesting because many of them lack definitive clarity in terms of the presentation and depictions of glyphs. And I said, I'm just going to take one text from Ogden, and I'm going to just look at how the word Kemet is actually represented in one of his major citations, because I don't accept what they say. I always want to have reference, as this is my teaching from Obing. Give me the original text. I don't want to see you. I don't want to see your mistakes. Egyptologists make mistakes all the time. And here I don't even have the original text, but I'm actually closer because this is a hieroglyphic facsimile. So I actually tried to get the original text, but I couldn't. We actually need to see all of these texts actually before we even make a final determination on this. But what I want to show you is here. This right here. This right here. This is, quote unquote, their word for Kemet in one of the texts that Ogden Delay cites. You tell me, if you, Mpundishi, anyone in here who is taking the language, you tell me if that glyph looks like the Kem glyph. You tell me yes or no. The inference that's being made is that because of the phonetic complement is the L, that must be Kemet. I don't see Kemet in there. In fact, the angle is not there on the Kem glyph. And then it dips. It has a little dip at the end. I'm not even sure what this glyph is. This is a major text that he cited. So as we're making these points, as we're making these arguments, we need to actually look at the original text. That's a historical method. Next slide. And I'm going to go quick. Next slide. I'm going to skip this And so I'm going to end this presentation on instructions from Mary Carre. Brother Reggie has mentioned this also, but I wanted to talk about this text a lot. Strengthen your borders, your frontier patrols. A wretched is he who desires the land of a neighbor. Troops will fight troops as the ancestors foretold. Kemet fought in the graveyard, destroying tombs and vengeful destruction. What is going on here, folks, is that, and I disagree with Ogden, because it is not Mentuhotep II that is creating the concept of Kemet for the nation. That is, that in the process of the ancient Egyptians fighting themselves during the first intermediate period, this term has evolved, kind of like Hasid. This term has evolved from a descriptive kind of social concept, and it has taken on a different geopolitical connotation in the environment of the first intermediate period that culminates with Mentuhotep II, but does not begin with Mentuhotep II. And what they're saying is that on an ethnic, on a geopolitical level, that we're the black country. And they're saying that to reaffirm who they were as a people, and also in their principal opposition of Western Asia in this text. Next slide. Lo, Dr. Carruthers quotes this all the time. Lo, the miserable Asiatic. He is wretched because of the place he's in, short of water, bare of wood. His paths are many and painful because of mountains. He does not dwell in one place. Food propels his legs. He fights since the time of Horus. I made Lord Egypt attack them. I captured their inhabitants. I seized their cattle until the Asiatics abhorred Kemet. This is where Ogden is translating Kemet as Egypt. That is, that it goes beyond talking about the quote-unquote soil. And that's what the town determinative. And as Gardner translates this determinative in his hieroglyphic sign book, is that that glyph implies an inhabited region. That is, you're talking about the country and its people. And so what they are talking about when they say Kemet as the black country, they are talking about both the country and the people. Thank you very much. Next panel, folks. We got to be on time.
Okay. Now, we have Black Egyptian in the place to be, Hotep said. We have Mongezi in the place to be. Help me for asked if Dr. Mario Beatty said Mary Kara, and she will never back. I go back to listen, and I told her yes, that it was actually on the screen as we were communicating. On the screen, it actually says Mary Kare. Many times they will put Re, R-E, instead of Ra, R-A. And I think it's because of the Coptic. So I played it till the end, and if you want to go back, you can. If you want to check the link that I have shared, it's on you. If I'm not mistaken, we have the chief of the riparian knights who's giving a hug to Mario Beatty. Now, this is an analogy, but when you have a confrontation, I practiced martial arts, so I had a few fights, I won a few titles. And at the end, usually, you know, we give each other a hug, you know, like no hard feeling, it's sport, you know. But someone is declared the winner. Now, in a few cases, they will declare that it's like, how do you say it again? When there's no winner. But when there's a title, it doesn't happen. They might say, okay, we're going to have an extra round. But when there's a title, you don't have like a situation where there's no winner that is declared. So most of the time when you have a fight, someone is declared the winner. And we usually, I mean, I practice kickboxing and Muay Thai. Oh, my audio is out of sync with the video. Oh, okay. Well, at least if the audio is fine, that's the most important. Because when the connection is not really great, then the screen will tend to freeze. So at least if the audio is fine, that's the most important. If I don't sound like I'm on a spaceship or submarine like on some other channels. Let me see how it is so far. Sound like I'm on a spaceship or submarine like on some other channels. Well, actually, on my end, it sounds really good actually. The audio. And you see, Mongezi also wrote audio good. Now we have Mark White TV wrote, Hotep, I'm late, but I'm here. No problem. Okay. But thank you for informing me. I appreciate that, because that's important to me. I like the feedback, I really want the quality to be good, So I practice kickboxing, but the fights that I had were in Muay Thai because when I wanted to have the kickboxing fight, it was like canceled at the day before, and I was like, okay, let me see what's up with Muay Thai or Thai boxing. So usually we give each other a hug before they announce the winner and after they announce the winner. So if the other person is declared the winner, I'm not going to give the dude the hug and then go on like, oh, well, he didn't win, blah, 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 blah. There are some cases that I've seen and I have filmed where someone was robbed. That's the way we say, at least in French, he was robbed, which means that he was supposed to be the winner, but the judges did not declare the winner. That happens, is true. Usually it doesn't really happen in the professional world, but in the amateur, semi-pro, we can see that. Ultimately, you might see that with some people who are professionals, but they're not like, professionals that would generate, high pay-per-view and stuff like that. But anyway, there are many pros walking around. You have some dudes who won some world champion titles, but the things that Muay Thai does not generate the money that traditional boxing generates, So we can see them, hugging, The chief of the riparian gives him a hug. But then after that, he's going to talk about, he did not argue it. That was not his domain, Now, some people might feel like, well, you have a concentration about such and such. And I want people to understand that what bothers me is not the clowns who are making those riparian claims. What bothers me is that we have members of the public who actually believe those claims. And that's the problem, because those claims can be classified in the field of science fiction. Because languages have grammars. And like Nether Neb says many times, you have grammar rules and they make their own grammar rules. That's why they have the nickname of, Magic Medu Nature, you see. And as a matter of fact, Dr. Mario Beatty said at one point, when you see the town determinative, you cannot make this translation. And when he says this translation, is talking about, something to have to do with water, riparian, or, whatever word they use that's related to water. You see? He stated it clearly, you see. He actually said that he feels, right at the beginning, he says, I kind of feel like we are recreating the 1974 UNESCO symposium. Maybe he used the word conference. I was paraphrasing, but you will see that it's quite accurate. The way I'm paraphrasing is quite accurate, Now, when he talked about there was a tete-a-tete, it literally means head-to-head. Tete-a-tete, it's like we have a dinner, like face-to-face, if you will, face-to-face. Now, some people might use it also to say head up, like we're going to fight, head up. It's like it's just you and me, nobody's going to jump in and stuff like that. But that's what it means. And he talked about a person that says that Kem doesn't mean black. And Dr. Mario Beatty mentioned a very famous scholar who said, no, 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 no. Chem does mean black. You see? So we are like, 50 years later, and we have some people who come with those funky claims. You see? And while trying to push the science fiction method, they are disrespecting several scholars. And we have that on record, we have that on tape. So falsehood has always been an issue with me. It's not new. When people used to defend anti-Black and anti-African teaching, such as Africans are living a jungle life, Africans are not civilized, like the NOI teaches, then it was a problem. And I fed up with some people that I was really close to or cool with, you see? So I want people to understand that. That's my main issue. There are really two guys who make that claims and the rest are groupies. And it's really one guy mainly who makes that claim of the riparian, and I will try to label them as riparianized from now on. So there's really one main guy and he's yes man who is like his bottom chick recruiting other people, so they can have, their pimping going on. And recently I pulled up on them to talk about what was said this current year, but they know that they've been saying a lot of horrible, messed up science fiction stuff, such as chem meaning black is a hypothesis. Smash Rockwell have shown so many different translations by so many different scholars of the glyph chem, Gardner reference I6. And for someone to say that it's a hypothesis that it means black, and I think he added, no one has demonstrated that, and then they're talking about it's a title. And then one of their talking points is if you look on the wall, their hair is black, their body is not black. That's the talking points that they are using to defend the false premise of their pamphlet, which is really their notes. And it's just horrible. It is horrible. It is falsehood, and people willingly sharing falsehood. And here I'm going to let you hear an example. You see, I'm sharing this video right there. I'm showing you an example of someone who followed the science fiction teaching. So that's where the danger lies. When Dr. Obadele Campbell made a critique of the book, The Origin of the Word Amen, at one point, because I read the critique, but you can go directly in the text if you prefer. The text is available online, easily available. If you just type the title, you will see it. So you can type in Dr. Cambon, Kambon, and then type critique, origin of the word Amen, and you will find it. And at one point, he says that this kind of inaccurate stuff, and I'm paraphrasing, but he used the word dangerous. It is dangerous. Falsehood that is passed off as scholarship is dangerous. So here, I have shared this. This is Smash Rockwell's YouTube channel. The title is Kemet, the Black Land, Plutarch, and correspondence with Dr. Sandro Caposcici, you see? So I'm going to share the screen and give you the timestamp so you can hear someone who, and I don't have anything against that person, you see? I'm not playing that, to disrespect that person whatsoever. The timestamp is 2:32:24. 2 hours, 32 minutes, 24 seconds.
Black soil or black people? Go ahead.
Yeah, my only point was they went against the consensus that Kemet meant black. Against that, that's my only point, bro. You don't got to muddy the waters all up and all that other bullshit.
And I get your point.
My language, I'm sorry.
But
let me get off figures. My energy is kind of crazy.
Nah, you good. You good. I like y'all.
Now, you heard him say that they went against the consensus that Kemet means black land, right? That's interesting to hear that. They went against the consensus, And one of their talking points to bypass the fact that they are going against grammar rules and scholars, experts, PhDs, and the consensus is that so-called logical fallacy of appealing to authority. Just talking points to sound smart. Let's continue.
Energy, but you know, you got control.
Out of curiosity, Jyoti, personally, what do you think can mean in the root chemic? I mean, you might be familiar with the meta-nature a little bit. You know, the I6 glyph. Are you familiar with that glyph? I6 glyph, the biliteral chem? Yeah.
Yes.
In your opinion, what does it mean? I mean, of course, it has a few other meanings. It can mean complete, and so chem can mean complete and all that. But for the most part, you know, I'm sure most of us on the panel agree. And like Smash Rockwell showed, you know, most of the white Egyptologists, the Germans, they translate it as black. Do you feel like it stands for black, or do you feel like it stands for anything that has to do with water or riparian land or riparian country?
Man,
what is your
stance? Question. Don't answer.
I think
don't
it just
answer.
stand. Could I answer? God damn.
Don't answer.
You gotta sync it all up, bro. Let me answer the question. I think the you said the I6 glyph, right?
Indeed.
I think it means that it represents the consonants KM. That's as far as I can go with it.
Wow. Yeah. But well, you see that's a soft point. That's a soft point. You know, and that's Asar being.
That's my point. I'm not doing Asar, bro.
Yeah, no, because that's what he said the last time. He said, "Cam, you know, the I6 glyph is just a consonant sequence KM." It's like me saying the plow or the whole HOE is just a consonant sequence MR, but it stands for love or beloved. You know, I mean, it has a meaning. Of course, you have
right. It has context.
Value. You have some phonetic value, but what's the meaning? Because they argue.
Now, you see that's one of the talking points, and what I'm talking about is that conversation. I have shared it many times. The video lasts for 6 hours. It's on Smash Rockwell's YouTube channel. I think the title is Black Egypt. Ancient Egyptians calling themselves black. I have the shorter version of the 3 hours of the conversation, because first you had the presentation by Smash Rockwell, and then we had a conversation. So on my channel, it is called, you should type in Egyptologist if you know how to search within the channel, because I don't want to say those dudes' names, you know. I don't mean to brag, but during those 3 hours conversation, the Willie Lynch dude, he got destroyed. It was embarrassing, and really he did that to himself, because once again I gave him many opportunity to get out of his science fiction so-called teaching, but he would not let go. And it was not a debate, but we debated their stance. We debated the issue, you see. And for 3 hours, he was really, really destroyed. And he's very, very salty about it. And he's doing just like his chief dude, the guy who said that he's a historian, you know. The guy who said that he's a a anthropological linguist, you know. The guy who first said that Theophile Benga doesn't have any degree in linguistics. Then he backpedals and say, okay, those were just certificates. So when you make a statement like that about a giant like that, the Theophile Benga, can't you just at least say my bad? If you don't want to say I'm sorry, if you don't want to say I apologize, can't you at least say my bad? Stating anyway, when I pulled up on them to talk about what they've said during this year, during this slaughter, this 3 hour slaughter, when, you know, we gave them the business. Smash Rockwell and I, we gave both these riparian knights the business. The guy was talking about 2014, but you know what's funny? Their book was released in 2019. So there are some words that I'm trying not to use, because I understand like retarded is seen as a negative or offensive word towards people who have some mental challenge, you know. And I don't really want to use the, you know, the monkey word because some people make an association with that word and a particular ethnic group. I don't use that exclusively because of an ethnic group. So I mean, at some point, it's really ridiculous. Their book was released in 2019. A call to talk about what they said this year regarding their claim from their book, and the guy, to avoid that, talks about 2014. Disingenuous, lying, disrespectful, condescending, and anyway, and everything. But anyway, let's continue and listen to what he's going to say.
It stands for riparian and riparian country. I mean, Kemet, so the argue has something to do with water, fertile, anything, something to do with water, But are you on that side? Do you gear towards that side, or do you gear towards like Kem meaning black, personally?
It depends on how it's used.
Kemet, for the word Kemet.
And actually, before I continue, when I ask him the question, what does Kemet mean? He replied, it's K and M. And that's exactly what the historian, the fake historian and fake linguist said. Now, you see, we don't really use VCRs anymore, right? But people of my generation knows about that, So we have the play button, right? Now, back in the day, they will write play at the bottom, and later on, I'm not sure if they would even put it, but we know it's a triangle. And it's a triangle facing towards the right. So if I ask someone, what does this button mean, or what does that sign or symbol on the button mean? What does it mean? And somebody tells me it's a triangle. Would that make sense? It is a triangle, but what does it mean? It means play. So I was asking him the meaning of the God and the sign is I6, not the phonetic value, but to try to get around it, just like Dr. Mario Beatty said, that dude, he does not go through the Coptic, he goes around it. So this guy, believing in the science fiction and taking on the talking points of those teachers of science fiction, he's using this escape route. He's just going around the issue, right? And that's why I said it's like me saying that the whole HOE or the plow, is just a phonetic or the consonantal sequence MR, but it has a meaning. So when we say Tameri, that's the glyph that we have, the whole of the plow. Now, ultimately, you have another glyph, which is a water canal that has the same phonetic value. So you can see it many times, like those who took the classes, Sa'ef Medi F from the Louvre Museum, Sa'ef Medi F Ptahhotep. If I'm not mistaken, it is the water canal glyph. But anyway, those are two glyphs that are not the same, of course, but they have the same phonetic value or consonantal sequence for those who want to be that specific, and it's MR, and the main meaning has to do with love, you see. But anyway, let's continue now, because I'm going to ask him what does Kemet mean, and then it's going to be quite funny, But once again, I'm not trying to make fun of that brother. I appreciate him for coming on and talking with us. It's really good when we have a dialogue. So please don't take it the wrong way. You will notice that I'm not going to make fun of you. That's not my intention.
In the word Kemet.
The only way I can tell how Kem is used if it doesn't have a classifier at the end of it is through its context in the text.
When it's referring to,
and for the record, Kemet has what he calls a classifier, what others call a determinative, which is the 049 glyph, the Newt glyph. Some people in America pronounce it Nuet because some people in America and maybe in other parts of the world will pronounce the W just like a typical W in the English language. but from my observation, most Egyptologists will say that the W is pronounced U. So we're talking about the same thing. The pronunciation might be different. It's not a big deal, okay? But there is this quote unquote classifier or determinative, you know. But let's continue. It's okay.
What does Kemet mean to you, as far as you're concerned? You know.
Depends on how it's used. It's different commitments.
No.
Top.
Yes. When with the newt glyph, you know, with the newt glyph.
That's the answer right there. It's a toponym. That's my answer.
Okay.
You see that? You see that? I'm asking him what does Kemet mean, and he says that's the toponym. He knows what's coming. He knows. He knows very well. Just like those guys knew what was coming. All the foolishness that they spilled out for 3 hours is really embarrassing. So they're like, oh, I talked about this in 2014. But the book of their premise was released in 2019. It just doesn't make sense. And they have the nerve to talk about comprehension issues. But let's continue. He's going to give an answer still. He's going to, because I guess, you know, sometimes you know that you're on some BS. You know that you're not being straight up. You know that you're not being 100%. So like, okay, I have to do better than this. I have to give an answer, you know.
It means Egypt. It means Egypt. Y'all skating around an issue. Do you agree with the song, man?
Y'all trying to put me on the hot seat. I ain't the song. I'm not job.
No, I'm asking you.
I don't know if you heard it, but he said it means Egypt, and I think I might try to deal with that. But let's listen up.
I ain't trying to get into that shit. I just came on here because like I was scared to come on here. That's why I came on here. I'm not here to defend the song.
No, you understand that. You know,
I'm scared to answer what? I'm scared.
What question?
Yeah, one mic. Hold on, let them up.
Hold on. I want to get straight to it. Let me get straight to it. Based off what you know, you know, I know you. That's why I'm gonna go straight to it. I don't want to play around all that. I'm gonna ask you, based off of what you've heard over the last months and years, do you agree with the stance of Wuja and Asar, or do you agree with the experts that have been brought forward? What say you? That ain't got, it shouldn't have nothing to do with the friendship. I'm asking you because I trust your opinion, Tahudi. I just like to get straight to it.
What group mine? Who I study with all the time, bro?
Wuja.
I ain't asking some crazy ass shit like that, B. They try to put it like I'm going against the experts. I ain't going against the experts. So the experts agree with what we talking about. But riparian land is in the dictionary, B.
Did I hear it?
Now, that's a science fiction. He said the expert agree with what we're talking about. Then he made a very sleek talking point by saying riparian land is in the dictionary. Now, I mean, let me put it back. Let me put it back.
Friendship.
I'm asking mine. Who I study with all the time, bro?
Wuja.
I ain't asking some crazy ass shit like that. They try to put it like I'm going against the experts. I ain't going against the experts. So the experts agree with what we talking about. Riparian land is in the dictionary, B.
Riparian land is in the dictionary. But is it the Cam glyph that is translated as riparian land? So even basics like, you know, definition, meaning, you know, besides grammar, before we deal with the grammar, you know, if that exists, that's fine. Congratulations to everybody that wants to argue the riparianite land for Kemet. But is it the I6 glyph? Once again, on the cover of their science fiction book, we have Kemet spelled out or written with the I6 glyph and the newt determinative, not the other determinatives. That I'm talking about the book cover now. Some people will say don't judge a book by its cover, but we are dealing with the Cam glyph, I6 glyph. So to say that the expert agree with them, that's science fiction. And to say that riparian land is in the dictionary, that's being slick or disingenuous, because we're talking about the I6 glyph, you see. But some of you don't know the meta nature, so it might go over your head if I talk about I6 glyph and so on. But some of you who will take the time will understand. Now, because I have joined the university, Maybe the card arrived in the mail. I will see. But I think if it doesn't come by this weekend, it will surely arrive by next week. So because I am a university student, then I have access to the library, and the book by James P. Allen is available. All the chapters can be downloaded, you see. So if any of you happens to be a university student and you do have access to the online library, try to look up James P. Allen, Middle Egyptian. The title is longer, and you can have a look at what he says. You have other books that are now in the public domain that you can get, on archive.org, whether it is Faulkner's Concise Dictionary or the Wörterbuch. I don't speak German, so my accent might be off. And what's the other one? There's Faulkner, Egyptian Grammar by Gardner, And if you want, you can even look at the most recent works, the most recent grammar books or dictionary of the Medu Neter, and look up the I6 glyph and see what it says. And it's just like any other language. Current languages, dead languages, old/ancient languages. You just look at what it means. It's simple. It's that simple. But those people are being slick. And I think that deep inside, they know that their premise is wrong. And they just don't want to say so. Just like when we spoke for 3 hours and they were destroyed, instead of admitting, okay, all right, granted, I get it. And it's just sad. But let's continue. I don't want to be too long with this, because anyway, I'm going to finish soon. So let's end with this.
Did I hear it?
You heard it. I agree with. I think so. I put in more work on this subject than anybody else.
Hey, to each his own. It's a matter of opinion. He has a right to his opinion.
Appreciate that.
I don't see nobody questioning his work. It just go around the fringes of. I see everybody going. Smash is the closest one. Smash actually deals with it. Everybody else is going around with fucking fringes.
Hold on.
Please,
everybody trying to act like put plagiarist stuff in the bag.
Please give us a dictionary. Please give us a dictionary. You said riparian land is in the dictionary.
Hold on, everybody gotta stop one at a time.
Yeah, that's
a good conversation.
Please, if you don't mind, Brother Joti, you said it's in the dictionary. Can you just give us a reference?
Yeah, God, because Smash had it like last week. He showed it was in the dictionary.
Yeah, it's in a dictionary, but not under Kemet. So that might be the confusion.
Now you heard the silence. When I stand to say that the so-called historian, anthropological linguist is doing the most work, he doesn't see anybody else doing that much work. But when I ask him, okay, can you give us a reference from the dictionary? There was silence. And then the funny thing is that he said, Smash showed that it's in the dictionary. Smash has a opposite view. You know what I'm saying? And it's so funny. And you heard what Smash said. Riparian land or riparian zone or riparian country, that's in the dictionary, but it's not the I6 glyph. It's not on the Kem or Kemet. So, it is supposed to be basic, elementary, We have a guy who's dismissing people with master's degrees and PhD degree, talking about their dissertation is very basic, very narrow, but we're dealing with some basic grammar right now.
It's in the dictionary under other terms, and the work that I found lacking from the Simsu Heru was they didn't redefine the other words that supposedly already mean riparian land. If you see what I mean, or they didn't even address the other words that already mean riparian land. At least I don't recall.
And Joti, and I have my answer. Thank you, Smash. Because I thought it was Kemet, I mean, riparian. And I was like, which country? But you said, for the record, earlier when I asked you what does Kemet mean, you said Egypt. Egypt derives from head capital or Hut capital. Then it went to the Greek Hyguptos, and that's where we get the English Egypt. But the things that, Kem stands for black. So Kemet is translated by, personally, as I translated as the black. Most Egyptologists would translate it as the black land, and they say it's because of the color of the soil and all that. And of course, most people who are labeled as African-centered or Afrocentrist, they will translate it as the land of black people. So there's always this black in the picture, But this riparian stuff with Kem, that comes from two persons. I don't know anybody else that come up with that. But you have the right to believe them. You have the right to follow them. It's all good. I just wanted to state that for the record.
Okay, I don't want to mess up no debates or nothing. I'm not gonna bring nothing out. I will. I'll bring certain things out. I'm gonna leave them arguments to for Saruja and Sanjeti for y'all to have. I'm not.
The thing is that.
Okay, that's enough. I think we heard enough. And that's the big problem to me. People are trying to normalize being pseudo, and they are trying to present science fiction as scholarly work. Now, Dr. Mario Beatty Dr. Mario, I can tell he knows French. I can tell he read some French, and by the way he read it, I know he's familiar with French. So if somebody comes to me and tells me, the word noir means riparian land, then I'd be like, no, the word noir means black. Then if that person wants to do some linguistic gymnastic and linguistic acrobatic and go out of his way to try to make me believe or make other people believe that the word noir means riparian land or riparian country, it's going to be a hard task. It's going to be an impossible task. This is really going to be the mission impossible task. You see? So this is the same thing that we have now, but with a different language that is the Medu Neter. As simple as that. It's that simple, brothers and sisters. Now, they will use some, I don't like the term big words, but they will use some terms that most people are not familiar with. They will emulate scholars. I mean, one in particular is a great imitator, so he's going to emulate and try to confuse you, you know what I'm saying? Because for those who care, for 3 hours, we spoke with them, and the so-called Medu Neter teacher, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was just embarrassing. And that's when you lack logic, that's when you lack methodology, and that's when you separate yourself from the realm of scholarship and you move into the world of science fiction. They are dealing with science fiction. They're talking about stuff that just don't exist at all. Well, Imhotep 360. And there's a very interesting comment left by Mongezi. Very, very good comment here. No disrespect to anybody else that made comments, but Mongezi wrote, if people have issue with grammar rules, then they should create new grammar rules and submit them for scrutiny to formal structures of the field, but I doubt it will happen because they avoid such scrutiny. Well, I'm not aware of them presenting anything to the public that was previously peer-reviewed. Their pamphlet, their 90-something page notes that they turned into a book, was it peer-reviewed? So I'm not going to say or claim that, everything has to be peer-reviewed. But if you go against consensus, it would be good for your argument to be peer-reviewed. So in a nutshell, that's what I wanted to say. I want people to understand that I am more focused on the danger of our people believing science fiction because it is presented by some people who are previously hyped up. You know, there's one guy, I don't really like to talk about him that much, but he was supposed to debate a PhD in Islamic studies. He was very hyped up. You'll feel like he's one of the top scholars of the community. He got on stage, and the other guy went first. He got on stage, did not present jack, and bounced, and was paid like $3,000, maybe $4,000. I forgot, you know. And people had their reality check, you know. But these Netanyahu said several times that he wanted to debate the so-called Medu Neter teacher, the Willie Lynch Wujah dude. And that dude didn't want to. And like I said, the discussion we had was not a debate, but we debated the issue. And it might have been the first time that he got to debate with someone that was not a typical caller, that is not familiar with the Medu Neter, or one of their groupies. And with one of their groupies, it's not really going to be a debate because they are all in agreement. Whatever they say, their groupies will go along. So for the first time, he had some opposite view from someone that is familiar with the Medu Neter, and it was just an embarrassment for him. You know, his girlfriend was so embarrassed that she, you know, used some negative labels towards me. You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is, you know. It is what it is. And then they're gonna have the nerve to talk about me running, and I have already shown that, you know, I spoke for like 3 hours. It was about 7 a.m. You know, I'm not supposed to leave a platform when people give me the authorization to leave. Otherwise, it means that I am a subservient person or a child to those people. That's not the way it works. If 3 hours is not enough, then, you know, hey, I'm not used to do the 10-hour live stream. And, you know, I had some long live streams before, but you will notice that there was plenty of participation. These guys can do 10-hour live stream. And if you make the calculation, out of the 10 hours, that so-called Medu Neter teacher will speak like 8 to 9 hours. You know what I'm saying? Without a sweat, you know. So that's what I wanted to say in a nutshell. And it's not just about the Medu Neter, any other field besides Egyptology. It is dangerous to present science fiction as scholarship. Okay, if anybody wants to deal with science fiction, let him or her say this is science fiction. All right. So, brothers and sisters, stay safe, stay healthy. And if I'm allowed to by the Necheru, I will definitely holler back at you. Hotel. Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I'm giving Medu Neter classes. And here, that's the flyer. Okay? So, those who are interested, feel free to holler at me. If you're not interested, it's cool. But I recommend that everybody who has not yet seen the video, Kemet and Ma'at, Before Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then watch it. It has about 300,000 views and really deserves to have a lot more.
I just want to let everyone know who's listening in now and who's going to listen to this stream in the future. I just had my first Medu Neter class by Brother Shaka today, and I've had other Medu Neter lessons by other teachers, and I can tell you right now, the brother is the best in the game. He is that was one of the best classes I've ever had, ever. So if you're interested in learning the Medu Neter, if you're interested in getting the basics of it, Brother Shaka is an awesome teacher. Get with him, and it's extremely affordable. This brother is giving us his time and his skills, and he's basically giving it away. I mean, I just consider it a donation. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody is interested in learning the Medu Neter, get with this brother right here. He's an awesome, awesome, awesome teacher. And I'll end with that.
Hotep Senu, Hena Senut, This is Julie, also known as Servant of Yah, and I'm currently taking the Medunetshir classes with Brother Shaka, and it has been an amazing experience. Only 2 lessons so far, and I feel like I've been taking the classes for months, just with the how in depth he goes into the vocabulary words, the construction of the language, the grammar. It's been immeasurable, the experience. And one thing that comes across, hands down, is his extreme passion for teaching this to anyone who is willing to learn and has an interest in learning. So I highly suggest, if you are interested, even a minimal interest, that you subscribe to the classes with Brother Shaka. It's such a nominal amount for how much you get. I know, like, our last class was over 2.5 hours. It felt like 2 minutes, but because that's how, involved you are in what he's teaching and how he teaches and how compassionate he is about what he teaches. Also with sharing materials free of charge, no question, no doubt. It's just what he does. He doesn't have to, but he does. And so I just wanted to give a short testimonial about the class and the effectiveness of the class, and all of that is attested to how studied Brother Shaka is. So I highly recommend anyone with a minimal interest that you do sign up for the Medunetshir class. Hotep.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which is Ma'at Forever. Don't forget to watch the video entitled Kemet and Ma'at. Don't forget to share Kemet and Ma'at for my channel on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or other social media that you use. Email, text messages, you name it. Those who wish to donate can do so on paypal.me/ma'at4ever.